Welcome to this vital presentation titled Revised Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Policy. My name is Nancy Kavop. I am the Director for the Office for the Development for Women. I am pleased to share with you all the draft policy priority areas and strategic priority areas of the revised policy. At the end of the presentation, we would like you to provide your feedback to help us validate and improve this current revised policy. Throughout the presentation, when I'm referring to the currently expired policy, I am referring to the National Women and Gender Equality Policy 2011 to 2015, and when I say revised, I am referring to the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Policy 2024 to 2034. Policy approach. There is one major change in this revised policy approach. The approach will be dual-track approach, whereby gender equality and women's empowerment are mainstreamed and at the same time integrated into sector programs. Policy vision. The revised policy vision is for women and girls to live in dignity, safety, mutual respect and harmony with men and boys in Papua New Guinea. Policy mission. The revised policy mission is to enable all women and girls to have equal rights and opportunities to economic, social, cultural, and civil life with men and boys to achieve gender equality across all levels of government, workplace, community, and home. Policy objective. The overall policy objective is to provide an overarching framework of achieving gender equality, empowerment, and protection of all women and girls in Papua New Guinea. Specific policy objectives. There are three specific policy objectives in this revised policy. Number one, to guide government leadership in the advancement of women's rights and investing in gender equality in national laws, policies, strategies, and programs. Number two, to develop gender transformative approaches to address discrimination and inequalities experienced by women and girls across all government levels by mainstreaming and integrating gender equality and women's empowerment into all government sectoral priorities and improving accountability to eliminate gender inequalities. Number three, to provide funding for national gender equality mechanisms and promote the role of men and boys as advocates for gender equality. The revised policy has 9 priority areas, which incorporates the 14 priority areas of the currently expired policy, and that is women economic empowerment, women's leadership and decision making, women in health, girls' education and women's training, gender-based violence against women and girls, women and infrastructure, women and climate change, women and natural resource management, and enabling environment. Women's economic empowerment. In the expired policy, the following priority areas were focused on women's economic empowerment. Women's economic empowerment, employment opportunities and conditions, market opportunities, and special groups of women. In the revised policy, these 4 themes have been incorporated into the following strategic priority areas. Number 1, to create a safe and secure work environment for women and enhance the employment opportunities. Number 2, strengthen access to finance, market, and information for women to grow their business. And number 3, enable women to own property, land, and other assets. Women's leadership and decision making. Women's leadership and decision making has considered the following priority areas in the currently expired policy: cultural norms and traditions, women in decision making, political participation, special groups of women. In the revised policy, 2 strategic priority areas are strengthen women's leadership at all levels of decision making, and number 2, eliminate stereotypes and harmful practices that prevent women from self-autonomy. Women and health. The three strategic priority areas under Women and Health in the revised policy has considered the following priority action areas from the currently expired policy: health, HIV and AIDS, cultural norms and traditions, and special groups of women. Strategic priority areas in the reviewed policy are increase access to sexual, reproductive health and other basic health services, strengthen partnership to address HIV/AIDS, increase collection of disaggregation of health data based on gender, age, and disability. Girls' education and women's training. In the revised policy, the three strategic priority areas under girls' education and women's training includes improve access for all school-age girls and boys and women to a quality education in schools and learning institutions. Number 2, enable the full and equal participation of all school-age girls and boys and women in safe and protective learning environments. And number 3, improve learning and well-being outcomes to enable all school-aged girls and boys and women to reach their full potential. Gender-based violence against women and girls. There are 4 strategic priority areas under gender-based violence against women and girls. There are 4 new priority areas under this theme, which includes sorcery accusation-related violence, trafficking and sexual exploitation of women and girls, and access to safety and justice. Women and climate change. Women and climate change has considered the following priority areas from the currently expired policy: women and environment, fisheries, and women in agriculture. In the revised policy, the change is the focus on climate change, disaster, and food security. Women and infrastructure. This is a new policy strategy under the revised policy. It covers access, usage, and security for all women and girls in the transport sector, and participation of women in the production, use, and distribution of clean energy. Women's participation and access to governance and management of WASH, and safety in public spaces. The 4th strategic priority area under women and infrastructure is to increase the contribution of women to develop, access, and use of information, communication, and technology. Women and natural management. The strategy in the revised policy, women and natural resource management, is focused on extractive industry communities. That is to ensure women can participate at all levels of natural resource management process. Number 2, enhance economic empowerment of women in natural resource development communities. And the 3rd strategic priority area under women and natural resource management is to reduce the incidence of violence against women in natural resource development communities. Enabling environment. Enabling environment is a new policy strategy. It has 3 strategic priority areas. Number 1, develop, strengthen, and implement gender-responsive legislative, policy, and organizational reform frameworks. Number 2, strengthening gender equality, disability, and social inclusion institutional arrangements. The 3rd strategic priority area under enabling environment is to strengthen research, data, and knowledge on gender equality and rights of women and girls. Implementation plan. This is a new section in the revised policy. In the implementation plan, it will have each implementation strategy assigned to a government department or agency with a key performance indicator. All 9 strategic priority areas I have highlighted in the presentation will have its own implementation plan. This is the end of my presentation. We would now like to ask you to copy the link on the presentation and paste it onto your internet browser to access the feedback. This round of feedback is the final validation process of this revised policy. The first validation was conducted from 29th January to 10th February 2024. We ran a 2-week online survey to validate the policy, priority areas, and implementation strategies, which I just highlighted in this presentation. Now, when you're ready, please click on the link.